Haunting discovery, SD card found in missing Thru-Hiker's shoe, uncovering dark secrets at 3 a.m. A bone-chilling silence hung over the dense forest as the sun dipped below the horizon, cloaking the world in shadow. But this was no ordinary evening, it was the night secrets would claw their way back to the surface. The word was out, a beloved Thru-Hiker had vanished into thin air. Friends and family searched every inch of the Appalachian Trail, their hearts pounding with fear, dread replacing hope. Then, a stranger's foot struck something peculiar while hiking a blackened SD card wedged in the sole of an old, worn hiking boot. With trembling fingers, the stranger plucked it out, his instincts screaming that this was no coincidence. As the witching hour approached, the air thickened with electricity. Curiosity sparked, and whispers hummed through the small gathering of hikers lingering at the campsite. They huddled around the campfire, faces illuminated by flickering flames, shadows dancing eerily on their skin. "Do you think it belonged to him?" one asked, biting her lip nervously. "What if that guy found something he shouldn't have?" Another replied, eyes wide with fear. The forest seemed to breathe, every rustle and crack echoing unnervingly. It felt as if the trees themselves were witnesses to unspeakable truths. Peering closely at the SD card in the dim light, the stranger's hands shook. The writing on the device was cryptic letters and numbers entwined in a chaotic jumble. What could it hold? A normal camping video? Or something more sinister? He felt a lump in his throat. The realization hit him like a cold wave. What if this card contained evidence of why that young man had gone missing? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Back at the campsite, the crackle of the fire faded into an engulfing silence as the stranger turned the card over in his palm, anticipation coiling tighter within him. The smattering of laughter and stories from fellow hikers diminished, leaving an anxious buzz in the air. Perhaps everyone felt it, the creeping unknown. It was time to confront what lay buried within that tiny piece of technology. Light flickered across their faces as they leaned in. What horrors would this card reveal? The stranger felt the weight of their eyes on him, a mixture of eagerness and fear. They were all in this together now. And as he inserted the card into his phone, a muffled gasp escaped someone's lips. What lay ahead on that small screen could change everything. Was it a haunting glimpse into the last moments of a missing soul, or a revelation that would plunge them all into a nightmarish reality? Only a few more moments would stand between curiosity and chilling discovery. The moment the screen flickered to life, a collective shiver ran through the group. It wasn't just the cold night air that caused them to tighten their jackets. The faces around the fire were painted in hues of horror and anticipation, eyes glued to the display. In the low glow, the stranger readied himself, heart hammering against his chest like drum beats echoing through the silence of the woods. Static crackled, then a shaky video began to play. The last recorded moments of the missing hiker flashed before them, a breathless montage of desolation. Trees loomed endlessly in the background, shadows creeping in tighter with each second. The camera captured his laughter mixed with the rush of wind, a naive joy that now felt painfully tragic. "Turn it up. I can't hear," someone urged, barely containing their excitement. Or was it fear? The stranger tilted his phone closer, the audio warping as it amplified. Everyone leaned in, gripped tightly by the weight of anticipation. Gradually, the figure on the screen came into focus, standing on the edge of an ominous cliff overlooking what resembled a vast abyss. "Guys, it's nothing. Just some freaky view." The hiker laughed, but his chuckle felt forced. The uneasy smile that followed sent chills down spines. It was as if he sensed something lurking, something that sent the hair on their arms standing tall. Then came the whispers. Faint, barely audible, but unmistakably present. The stranger paused the video. The hikers exchanged frantic glances, each emerging thought tinged with a spike of paranoia. Could it be the wind? Or was there something more sinister lurking beyond the veil of night? Replay that, a voice trembled. It sounded like shoo. Another hissed, cutting them off. The atmosphere crackled with tension as the video replayed that chilling moment. This time, the whispers were clearer, growing louder as if they were emanating from the very trees surrounding them. "Help us!" The words drifted through the speakers like ghostly echoes. The group exchanged fearful looks, breath hitching in their throats. Adrenaline coursed through their veins. They were no longer just spectators, they were listeners at the edge of a dark revelation. What had this hiker stumbled upon? "Let me see it." One of the more adventurous hikers, a tall guy with an air of bravado, reached for the phone. The stranger reluctantly handed it over, knowing that once they indulged their curiosity, there would be no turning back. The tall guy pressed play again. The hiker now moved deeper into the woods, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "What's wrong?" he muttered, almost as if he sensed an unseen presence. As darkness enveloped him, he turned abruptly, the camera shaking wildly. Panic radiated from him like heat. "Do you see that?" the tall guy exclaimed, pointing at the screen, his voice harsh in the stillness. On the edge of the frame, a fleeting shadow appeared, stalking just beyond the reach of light. It was quick, too fast to decipher, then it vanished. That a gasp erupted from within the group, a sound of raw fear that ruptured the quiet. The atmosphere thickened as the stranger's stomach dropped. The laughter from earlier faded into the recesses of memory. The reality of their situation became glaringly clear. They were not just looking for answers, they were peering into something that wished to remain hidden. "How do we even know if he made it out?" someone whispered, their voice trembling. What if we're next?" The tall guy swallowed hard, eyes wide with dread. "We need to get back to the trailhead. This was a mistake." But before anyone could voice their agreement, another sound pierced the night, a branch snapping, followed by a low growl that resonated through the trees. Every heart thundered in response. The shadows around them shifted as if alive, the forest stirred like an awakened beast. Suddenly, the stranger's phone flickered and went dark, cutting off the last glimpse of hope. They stood as a collective mass, paralyzed in fear, not knowing whether the real nightmare had just begun or if they were already too late. And just when they thought silence had claimed the night, a chilling whisper, unmistakably human, slithered through the darkness. "Help me!" In that instant, the group understood they weren't just about to uncover a mystery, they would soon have to confront the very heart of darkness, trying to reach out from the depths of the unknown. What had this hiker truly discovered? And what unseen terror awaited them all in those unforgiving woods? In the pulses of impending dread, one thing became painfully clear: the night was far from over. The crack of the branch echoed like a gunshot, sending a jolt of panic through the group. They stood frozen, breaths caught in their throats, as the surrounding stillness gripped them tighter. The eerie murmur of the wind blended seamlessly with the low growl, each sound amplifying the dread clawing at their chests. "What was that?" someone whimpered, voice trembling. Anxiety buzzed in the air like electricity, an unseeable force binding them together. "Maybe it's just a wolf," the tall guy suggested, though the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. His bravado faded, replaced by the stark reality of the dark woods looming around them. Silence enveloped them once more, but the weight of foreboding hung heavier than ever. They whipped their heads around, eyes scanning the tree line as if something would lunge out and reveal itself. The flickering flames cast an uneasy glow, yet deep shadows danced just beyond their sight. Let us go back. "We shouldn't be here," someone urged, and though the group nodded in hesitant agreement, no one moved. Fear had turned their limbs to stone. The whispers danced in their minds, echoes of the hiker's last moments replaying relentlessly, drowning out the rational thoughts. They had to get out. They could sense that dark eyes were watching them, listening, waiting for their chance. The stranger who had shared the video felt it more than the others. The hidden truths clawed at his conscience, each unanswered question digging deeper. What could have happened to him? We might find something useful, valuable. He hated how his curiosity was battling against the instinct to flee. What if we do find something? One of the girls gasped, her eyes wide with fear. What if it's something we can't unsee? Better than waiting here for whatever that is to decide we're next. The tall guy shot back. His voice quavered as he turned back to the screen, his earlier bravado slipping away. Okay, fine. But keep the phone close. The girl insisted. Clenching her fists, she held her breath, as if the very act of exhaling would invite the darkness to swallow them whole. As the group huddled around the flickering light of the phone, urgency replaced curiosity. The tall guy pressed play again, and the visions of the hiker flashed before them once more. The familiar laughter echoed, yet beneath it lay a growing discomfort, the very air felt thick with impending dread. Look, he keeps looking over his shoulder. One of the guys exclaimed, his voice barely a whisper. Fear hung in every syllable. What did he see? The tension spiraled, suffocating. Suddenly, a figure appeared on the screen, shadows shifting as it moved just out of focus. The tall guy dropped the phone, and it clattered to the ground, the screen facing upward, illuminating the faces twisted in terror. Did you see that? Someone breathed. It was right behind him. In that moment, life seemed to constrict. A shrill scream erupted, not from the video, but from the depths of the woods. It sliced through the darkness, sending a clear chilling message, they were not alone. Run! The tall guy yelled, panic seeping into his voice as he snatched up the phone, the screen still flickering through the chaos. The group stumbled backward, hearts racing as they turned, ready to bolt back toward the trailhead. But as they rushed into the forest, the whispering returned, growing louder, more insistent. Help me! It was closer than before, wrapping around them like vines, as though the very trees themselves had come alive. The echo of despair caught in their throats, and each step forward felt like a step deeper into the unknown. They were racing against fear, but what would they find if they ventured deeper into the very heart of darkness that had claimed the hiker? The night pressed in, darkness thick around them, and just when escape seemed impossible, the screens of their phones caught a flicker, a brief glint of something that lay on the ground ahead. What is that? Fingers trembled as they neared it, their breaths fogging in the chilled air. As they leaned closer, a sense of dread mingled with an electrifying curiosity about to breach the threshold of their fears. What lay ahead could be their salvation, or the beginning of even greater terror. The group paused, the dim glow of their phones illuminating the ground. At first, it looked like nothing more than a shoe, stained and abandoned like the memories of laughter that once echoed here. But as they bent closer, unease slithered through each of them like ice. Is that a? The girl's voice trailed off as she gasped. The tall guy crouched, his heart pounding against his ribcage, and pulled the object gently toward him. It was not just a shoe, it held an SD card strung neatly through a broken lace. What do we do? Someone whispered, fear taking root in every heart. An impasse formed around the strange find. They were on the verge of discovery, but wasn't it better to leave the past buried? Yet, curiosity sparked a fire within the tall guy that burned hotter than the flames they had abandoned. Should we take it? He asked, eyes darting among the group, searching for courage amid the fear. Take it. Sure. What else can go wrong? A guy murmured sarcastically, though the tremble in his voice contradicted the bravado. As they stood in the thick air, the forest around them seemed to mutter. Help me! The voice echoed like a cruel joke, raising goosebumps on their skin. But the pull of curiosity outweighed their instincts. The tall guy pocketed the SD card, his hand shaking as it nestled against his thigh. What's next? A girl hissed, casting panicked glances into the blackness that surrounded them. We just keep going. We have to figure this out. If this belongs to him, we might know what happened. The stranger who shared the video had a glint in his eye, one shining with the thrill of the chase but dimmed by uncertainty. They had ventured past the point of no return, and now the truth was a dangerous game. Just then, as they turned to retrace their steps, the air shifted. A deafening rustle cut through the night, branches cracking underfoot, not theirs. An animal? No. The sound was too deliberate, too close. The whispering escalated, rising in a chaotic symphony of terrified breaths and muffled cries. "Get back!" The tall guy shouted, instincts surging as he shoved the others behind him, shielding them like a protective wall. Shadows twisted and morphed, unspeakable shapes lurking just beyond the edges of their dim lights. Then, a flesh-creeping silence fell around them. It pulsed and throbbed, waiting for someone to break it. The weight of dread pressed upon them, hearts pounding in visceral rhythm, each beat amplifying the shadow's sinister taunts. With the SD card still firmly in his grasp, the tall guy shouted, "If this is real, show us. We don't want to hurt you." His voice cracked, desperation leaking through the cracks of his bravado. An unearthly, breathy laugh echoed, ancient and cruel, sent shivers cascading down their spines. "Help me!" It was a haunting blend of pleading and mocking. Something or someone was near. "Turn the phone light off." A girl squeaked, terror bursting like a dam through their minds. "They LLC us." Fumbling with the devices, they cast a thick blanket of darkness around them. They crouched into the foliage, barely breathing, hearts vying for escape. But with the creeping dread came an overwhelming urge to understand, to expose whatever horror had ensnared the hiker before them. Why did that voice haunt them? What was left untold, lingering in the shadows? As silence wrapped around them once more, they were aware, a decision loomed on the horizon. Would they confront this darkness, or flee? Then, with an unsettling certainty, he felt it in his pocket, the SD card pulsing with a sick, cold energy begging to be uncovered. Could they handle what they might discover on the other side? And what if the answers they sought meant reaching a point of no return? The forest was a void, swallowing them whole. Heartbeats were the only sound they could hear, synced with the lightning strikes of fear in their chests. A shiver crept up the tall guy's spine as he glanced around. The shadows looked thicker, darker, as if they spun into something alive, something that could feel their fear. "Do you hear that?" whispered a girl, her voice barely more than a trembling breath. "Shoo!" He hushed her, the dread building a wall between him and the others. They needed to stay quiet. They needed to, but before he could finish that thought, a series of sharp snaps echoed nearby, like footsteps coming closer. There was a presence out there, stalking them. Behind every tree lurking the unknown, every shadow a potential threat. "Maybe we should just go back," someone urged, urgency clawing through their words. "This isn't worth it." "No. What if we're close to finding something?" The tall guy countered, desperation coating his voice. He felt the weight of the SD card pressing against his thigh, a reminder of their purpose. "We could get hurt." Their arguments faded into whispers, voices cracking under the pressure of the unseen dread. The tall guy took a deep breath, his instincts battling the thrill of adventure with survival. It was then he caught movement, a flicker of white in the darkness too quick to process. "Did you see that?" he asked, eyes darting to where he thought he saw it. The group nodded, each whispering panic yes through trembling lips. The laugh returned, low and guttural, swirling through the trees like smoke. It burrowed into their minds. "Help me shut up. Just shut up." The girl squealed, pressing her palms against her ears, but the voice invaded every little pocket of thought. The tall guy felt a surge of anger. They had to be brave. They had found that sodding shoe, and it had to mean something. "Let us just pull the SD card out," he insisted, reaching for his phone, hands shaking, eyes darting. As he fiddled with the device, the tension thickened in the air, binding them all. With a swift swipe, he inserted the SD card. His heart raced as he connected his phone to it. The screen flickered to life, and he could see the file directory. A list of videos and images appeared, each one sending cold knives of dread piercing deeper into their chests. "This is it," he whispered. A wave of heat cascaded over him. He felt both terrified and exhilarated. We can't just switch it off now. But as he opened the first video file, the sight was more than he bargained for. Static filled the air, echoing a raw chaos that morphed into something unfathomable. Screams erupted from the device, unmistakable sorrow etched into every moment captured on screen. "Stop!" the girl cried, voice cracking with fear. "Turn it off." But his finger lingered, paralyzed by what they were witnessing. Cold sweat trickled down his back. He could feel the rest of the group withdrawing slowly, each grappling with the terror of what existed beyond the screen. Suddenly, the video jerked, depicting a forest scene remarkably similar to their surroundings. In a split second, everything clicked, a realization that sent a dread chill dancing down to his bones. "Wait," he mumbled. "This looks just like where we are." A shadow moved through the screen, darker than midnight, and then the figure shifted into a ghastly head. The face looked agonized, lost. Rain slicked down the wet features, blurring the lines of reality. "Please," the figure on the screen rasped, voice a mere whisper, "help me." Frozen, the tall guy realized that whatever had trapped this soul wasn't done with them yet. They had opened a door, and the shadows were creeping in. Beyond the glowing screen, the darkness drew closer. And the whispers grew louder, "Help me." But what if it was already too late? As the faces of his friends morphed in horror, a new voice echoed, one he hadn't heard yet, chilling him to the bone, "You shouldn't have come here." The tall guy's finger trembled above the screen, caught between the urge to turn it off and the sick fascination pulling him in deeper. He could feel everyone's eyes on him, hearts thrumming like trapped birds. The air thickened, pressing against his chest as an icy tendril of fear snaked around his spine. Just one more," he mumbled under his breath, almost to himself. It felt wrong. Yet he pressed play again, curiosity igniting a morbid thrill that overpowered his instincts. The video resumed, capturing a dark part of the woods as shadows flickered in and out of view. Each frame revealed more unsettling figures twisting in agony, faces lost and desperate, calling for help in silent screams. What is this?" someone behind him whispered, their voice cracking. Why was he even looking? Part of him wanted to pull away, to shout for them to leave, but another part, the part that chased danger, hungered for the truth, eager to unearth whatever darkness lingered. Then the video jolted to a freeze frame, freezing on a face. The tall guy's stomach dropped. The face on the screen was one he recognized from the missing person reports plastered across his phone during late-night scrolls. He recalled the worried eyes, the plea for help before they vanished. "Come on, we need to go," a girl urged, her voice rising in panic. "We really shouldn't be here." A flicker of doubt danced in the tall guy's mind. But he couldn't back down now. They had come too far, discovered too much. He had to prove something not only to his friends but to himself. "Wait," he said defiantly. "I need to find out who this is." He flicked through the videos, each click sending ripples of dread through the group. He could feel the whispers crawl into his thoughts, wrapping tighter around him. What if they're trapped? Trapped? The girl gasped, voice rising to a pitch that sent birds scattering from the trees. "Are you insane?" Without waiting, he selected another video. The new clip began, and immediately, screams echoed through the forest. Real screams, not just a recording. The tall guy's heart raced as he stood rooted in place, the reality of the situation hitting him like a lead weight. "Please. Turn it off." The girl reached for his arm, her touch on his skin freezing him in his tracks. But his eyes remained glued to the screen. What if someone needed them? What if they could save whoever was crying from the screen's darkness? Suddenly, loud thuds resounded through the forest, a deep reverberation that felt like feet hitting the ground. The friends exchanged glances, eyes wide with fear as they realized that the sound didn't just come from the video. "Did you hear that?" one of them croaked. Before he could answer, the laughter returned, ringing out through the trees, raw and mocking, pulling something primal from within him. The tall guy's spine prickled. It was too close, too real. Help me, the shadows murmured again, but now the sound was layered, twisting into something unrecognizable. The face on the screen morphed into a grotesque visage, a wink of insanity breaking through, mocking them for even thinking they could intervene. Get the card! Someone shouted, breaking the hold it had on him. Let us just get rid of it. The tall guy hesitated, unable to comprehend their rising panic, but fear pulsed through him, an unyielding pulse. The shadows outside nearly fabricating an arm, stretching towards him, reaching through the video's blared. As he fumbled for the SD card, their desperate breaths blended with the echoing laughter. Everything felt surreal, like a distortion of reality. What had they unleashed? The moment he grabbed the card, a rush of wind whipped through the trees, catching them off guard, filling the air with a raw chill. Run! He shouted, panic surging through him. They didn't need to be told twice. They turned to sprint, heartbeats pounding, a heady rush of adrenaline and terror. But as they fled, the shadows seemed to close in tighter, swirling, whispering, the words becoming clearer. You shouldn't have come here, and you're not leaving. Was it too late? Was whatever was embedded in that card already entwined with their fate? And, somewhere in the depths of the forest, an anguished wail echoed, an unanswered plea that would follow them long after they thought they escaped. The wind howled through the trees, a bitter sharpness that bit at their skin. The tall guy and his friend stumbled blindly into the darkness, fervor and fear blending into a singular chaotic force. He could hear their panting breaths, feel the weight of terror pressing down on them like a heavy fog. Heart pounding, he could barely process what had just happened, but the unrelenting sense of dread propelled them forward. Where are we going? Someone gasped, glancing back. The shadows seemed to pulse behind them, hungry and relentless. Just keep running. He urged, feeling the darkness stretch, almost alive, ready to drown them in silence. Each step felt like a betrayal to his instincts, compelling him to turn around, to confront whatever horror lurked in the woods. But they couldn't stop now, not when that sound, a sinister blend of laughter and screams, taunted them from behind. Branches snapped underfoot, roots twisted threateningly in the darkness. He risked a glance over his shoulder, feeling the weight of unseen eyes upon him. Were they being followed? The chilling realization shot through him. Whatever torment had been depicted in those videos was now hunting them. Does anyone have a flashlight? The girl shouted, her voice rising above the cacophony of their footsteps. I think I left mine in the car. Another friend yelled back. Panic tightened in his chest. Just then, a hair-tingling whisper floated through the air, silky and terrifying. You can't escape it. Twisted around them, sinking deep into his bones. Don't listen. He shouted, his voice piercing the rising tension. It's just a trick. But even as he spoke, uncertainty crawled into his mind. What if they weren't alone? What if that nightmare on the screen had thickness, substance? What if it could reach out beyond the border of the videos and into the real world? Maybe we should split up, one of his friends suggested breathlessly, but the words made blood freeze in his veins. No. He barked, an instinctual reaction. Splitting up could turn fatal. There would be no one to witness their fate, no one to remember. Stay together. Suddenly, the laughter returned close, mocking. It echoed around them in layers, distorting the air, vibrating through their spines like a morbid lullaby. He felt the ground shift beneath him, the shadows tugging at his feet, begging to pull him into their grasp. Faster. He urged again, his voice rising to a near crescendo. Ahead, the underbrush suddenly broke into a clearing, moonlight cascading in like a rescue beacon. But relief mingled with foreboding as they stepped out into the open. What now? Someone panted, scanning the vast emptiness. We find a way to destroy that card, he breathed harshly, determination surging through him. It can't hold power over us if we can get rid of it. But just as those words hung in the air, a truth clicked into place. Reality shifted. The card wasn't just a piece of data, it was a tether, binding them to whatever was concealing its secrets. Above them, clouds swirled ominously, like an angry ocean preparing for a storm. And then, like thunder, a deep, resounding voice boomed from somewhere in the trees. "Return what belongs to us." The tall guy's heart stopped. He could feel icy fear drawing closer, wrapping around his throat. This wasn't just a prank anymore, it was a demand. "Guys, what do we do?" Someone stammered, eyes wide with terror. Tension mounted, and uncertainties bubbled to the surface as the tall guy wrestled with the enormity of the moment. Did they dare return the card? Or would that only seal their fates further? As the clouds swirled, shadows thickened, and the atmosphere thickened with dread as if the very forest itself was alive. "Hide!" he shouted, pulling his friends toward an ancient tree at the edge of the clearing, just as a chilling shift in the air signaled the approach of something dark, and far too familiar in the distance. The echoes of a familiar voice reached their ears, a whisper begging for help, looping endlessly, intertwining with their fears. What had they uncovered? And would they even survive to answer? The shadows encroached, thickening around them as they pressed close to the gnarled roots of the ancient tree. Its bark felt rough against his back, a mere barrier against the terror lurking beyond. The tall guy could hardly breathe, each inhale sharp and stunted. "Do you hear that?" one of his friends whispered, a tremor in her voice. They all strained to listen. The whisper was back, closer this time, almost tangible, begging. It twisted and coiled around their thoughts, pulling memories of the video gallery toward them, surge after surge. "What if it needs us to give the card back?" another friend ventured, glancing back towards the clearing, where the darkness seemed almost alive, waiting, prowling. "No!" he snapped, adrenaline sharpening his mind, driving out the creeping doubt. "No way we're doing that. Every bad thing that happened in those videos leads back to that card." But still, they did not move. The air was thick with expectation, as if the woods were holding its breath alongside them. "We could use it," the girl said suddenly, eyeing him, her voice nearly a whisper. "What if we turn it against whatever that is? We have to at least know what we're dealing with, right?" The idea sent chills cascading down his spine. What if they weren't equipped to handle whatever was on that card? What if it had already fed on their fears, grown stronger in the shadows? With a surge of determination, he pulled the small device from his pocket. The dim moonlight caught the edges, illuminating it like a cursed artifact. A roar of wind whipped through the trees, making them shudder. The moment felt heavy, fraught with choice. "Let's check it," he decided, his voice more confident than he felt. They huddled closer, clutching the device as if offering it protection. The screen flickered to life, and their faces reflected in the glow. No one spoke, breath held tight in anticipation. They scrolled through a file directory tangled with encrypted folders and cryptic file names that sent a fresh wave of dread through the group. "Is that?" someone murmured, pointing at a name. "It's the hiker from the news," another friend exclaimed, eyes widening. "The one who disappeared. This doesn't make any sense." The realization crashed over them like a frigid wave. Each clip they opened bared forgotten truths. Shadowy figures, possessed eyes, the anguished cries of those who vanished, and laughter that wasn't human. Each video was a fragment of horror, spinning narratives that linked their existence to the very device they held. But then, a low growl resonated through the trees, vibrating their bones. It grew louder, mingling with the laughter, dark and twisted. "Get it off. Close it." someone shouted, but the tall guy was transfixed. The screen displayed a final file labeled END, the image the cardinal, a demonic figure, looming with hollow eyes, beckoning that he pressed it. Pain slammed into him as the woods erupted. The ground shook violently, and nightmarish faces erupted from the shadows, eyes glinting like knives. "Run! Run!" he screamed, lunging toward his friends. They stumbled backwards, terror encasing them like chains, but before anyone could move, a cold hand gripped his shoulder, freezing him in place. The laughter grew louder, enveloping them as the woods churned and darkened around them. "What did we awaken?" He gasped, heart hammering as the shadows fused into form, a wall of darkness closing in like a predator approaching its prey. The ground beneath him crackled, brimming with energy that promised doom. They had pushed too far, breached something they weren't meant to touch. A flicker of light ahead caught his eye. A doorway. A chance. This way. He yelled, drawing everyone toward the light, desperation flooding his tone as he pushed them forward. But as he turned back for one last look, the figure loomed large, whispering sweet venom into the night. You can't escape. Panic clawed at his throat. Could they really find a way to survive? Would they be swallowed by the darkness, just another tale in a horrifying archive? The light flickered again, dimming. Move. As they surged forward, uncertain of what lay beyond, his breath caught. Had their nightmare just begun, or was there a way to fight back against the darkness following? Will we make it? One of his friends called hesitantly, as they raced toward the unknown. The answer danced mockingly just out of reach, loose like the shadows behind them. In the swirling chaos, one question burned through: what happens if the card knows they're coming? The light ahead pulsed like a heartbeat, the glow flickering in and out as if warning them to turn back. Fear gripped the whole group, squeezing the soft hope that had begun to seep into their bones. They stumbled forward, feet racing against the creeping tendrils of darkness that surged at their heels. Don't stop. Don't look back. He shouted, but his voice sounded small against the overwhelming symphony of fear surrounding them. The growls morphed into chortles, a chorus of voices that promised despair. They echoed along the trees, bouncing back at them violently, each shriek circular and distorted, urging them to reconsider. A jagged root snagged his ankle, sending him tumbling to the ground. Before he could push himself back up, the guttural laughter roared through the woods, raising the hairs on the back of his neck. Shadows danced around him, flickering like candle flames. He felt the cold earth pull at him, as if nature itself was trying to hold him down, to feast on his terror. Help! He cried, scrambling, his hands brushing against the damp foliage. His friends, momentarily oblivious to his plight, were already darting towards the light. It flickered an enticing invitation, glowing brighter as if it could shield them from whatever hunted them. He could hear footsteps racing away. Guys! He shouted again, but the sounds of the woods swallowed his words. His heart pounded like a war drum, drowning out everything else as if urging him to come to terms with the primal threat before him. Get up! We have to keep moving. One of his friends shouted, glancing back with frantic eyes that shimmered with fear. You have to move. Another echoed, and it jolted him into action. He clawed at the ground, pushing himself off the dirt just as a cold shadow swept over him. He could feel it, an icy chill, spreading fast like claws wrapping around his heart. He sprinted toward his friends, adrenaline sparking his movements, but the darkness surged behind him, an ominous wave threatening to drag him into its depths. The laughter grew more sinister, now a cacophony that echoed in his mind. You can't escape, it mocked. Almost there. She yelled, reaching out toward the light. It illuminated the shape of an ancient wooden door slightly ajar, just off the forest path like a ghostly lighthouse beckoning them through the storm. But then, it happened. The card in his pocket vibrated, a low hum resonating against his body. He froze, startled by the sudden pull towards its force. Did you feel that? He whispered, feeling a mix of dread and curiosity. His heart sank as a flicker of realization washed over him. Could it be causing this chaos? Just go. His friend shouted again, her voice strained as she clutched the door's handle. But as she pulled, a blast of wind burst forth, slamming it shut, darkness flooding the space, ominous and hungry. Panic swelled. What did we do? He gasped, feeling the card hot against his chest. Could it really be the source of their torment? Just trust it, she managed to say, breathing hard, staring at him with wild, desperate eyes. Before he could respond, a monstrous roar erupted from the shadows beyond the door, shaking the trees, cutting through the air like glass shattering. It vibrated deep within him, washing over him as the lights began to blink uncertainly, tethering them between reality and nightmare, that he turned to face the door as the shadows pooled together, forming a grotesque figure that loomed larger than life. "We're not done yet," it whispered, its voice a blend of every lost soul that had wandered before them. A surge of panic gripped him. "What do we do? We can't stay here." But then, something began to happen, a surge of energy from the card. It pulsed in rhythm with his own racing heartbeat, swirling, beckoning. Perhaps it held the key, the connection to whatever this darkness was, something they had unleashed. Now or never. He yelled, grasping the card firmly, an unexplainable sense of determination coursing through him. With one last gasp, he hurled it towards the doorway, praying it could somehow work, something that could shield them from the looming terror. The moment it struck the door, a blinding light erupted, a flare of energy that split the night like a crack of thunder. Shadows recoiled, and for a fleeting moment, silence filled the air. Had they survived the horrors of the woods? Or merely stirred a deeper darkness? The light suddenly dimmed again, and in its wake, the growls returned, fiercer than before. He could hardly breathe, awareness fading. He realized the shadows had more secrets to strip bare. Was it truly over? And then, as they grasped for hope amid the despair, a chilling question took root: what if the card didn't just hold their past, but their doomed future? The light flickered unsteadily as the shadows writhed, whispering their haunting, echoing pleas. In the thickening dark, fingers dug into the earth, the tangible fear that had gripped them only growing more potent. The tall guy fought to pull his friends back from the edge of despair, every ounce of determination radiating from him. "We can't give up now," he shouted, each word an anchor in a tempest. "We've come too far." As the darkness seemed to fold in around them, their eyes darted to the door, the ancient wood now crackling with raw energy. Time twisted, each second dripping like molasses, palpable dread thickening the air. He felt the pulse of the SD card against his chest, a taunting reminder of the power it held, or rather the power wielded over them all. "Break it open." Someone's voice broke through the chaos, urgency thrumming beneath desperation. They gathered, forming a wall against encroaching despair. Panic whipped through him like a windstorm, and he slammed his fist against the door. "Come on. Open." Shadows hissed back, swirling shadows that twisted and transformed, threatening to swallow everything alive. With a sudden burst, it pushed back, a violent shake reverberating through their bodies. The tall guy felt it ripple through him, urging him forward. "We need to work together." They braced themselves against the door, taut tension coiling their limbs. Together, they shoved with every ounce of strength. A groan sounded, ancient wood protesting as it slowly opened, revealing a blinding brightness that enveloped them in an ethereal glow. No hesitation, they rushed through, propelled by sheer terror. The world shifted, the light dazzling them, washing away the weight of the woods behind them. They stumbled into another realm, an almost dreamlike space where the shadows melted away into liquid gold. A vast field stretched before them, a haven that pulsed with life, but then, the whispers shifted, growing softer until they dissipated into the gentle breeze. Familiar faces of the missing hiker materialized before them, shimmering like memories against the chaos. "Help me," they echoed once more, without malice, desperate for acknowledgement and release. "Is this a dream?" the girl murmured, stepping forward. The others followed, eyes widening as more figures emerged, lost souls seeking liberation. The landscape blurred between reality and remorse, the souls appeared weighing the consequences of the past. "We have to help them," he urged. "This is what we came for, right?" They gathered around, forming a circle, hands reaching out, longing to touch what was lost, to offer closure where pain once lingered, but a sudden dark breeze wrapped around them, reminding them of what waited just outside. "We can't lose strength," he shouted. "We need to do this together." Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, clutching the SD card tightly. "You don't belong to the shadows. We're here to set you free." He felt his friends fall in beside him, a united front, their strength coalescing, the spark of hope igniting as hands clasped together in joint purpose. With one voice, they shouted, release them. The words hung in the air, shimmering in the light, slowly taking root in the souls imprisoned by despair. A wave of energy surged, coursing through their grasp, as the shadows encroached more ferociously. But against the darkness, a chorus of agony transformed into soft sighs, whispers of release echoing harmoniously through the realm. The figures began to dissolve, each one glowing with gratitude as they shimmered out, released from eternal entrapment. The tall guy's heart soared, but in the midst of liberation, he felt the grip of darkness still clinging tightly, angry and resentful. This isn't over. The shadows roared, swirling around them like a storm waiting to break. The canvas of light flickered, uncertainty creeping back in. "Stay with me," he urged once more, gripping his friends tighter. The light pulsed ominously as walls shifted around them, revealing glimpses of the haunted woods that lay just beyond. Yet an unseen force surged beneath them. The remnants of the SD card whispering ancient truths determined to bring their reckoning, and then, everything finally fell still. The air thickened, pausing inevitable chaos. The world outside dimmed, as the last echo of the trapped souls faded into a gentle hum of peace. "We did it," one of his friends whispered, overwhelmed by emotional release. Relief washed over them like a cleansing rain, but then the card pulsed one more time, the energy feeling heavy, almost predatory. He recalled the glimmers of what they had uncovered, the price that lingered long after their discovery. An unsettling realization sank in. But did we actually break the curse? As they stared into the shimmering horizon, pulses of darkness began resolving into shapes, a reminder of what lurked beyond. The tall guy felt the uncertainty wash over him. They had faced the darkness, but the cost let us not linger. "Run!" he urged. As they ran into the bright unknown, the shadows began to shrink. They pushed forward, hearts racing, adrenaline propelling them beyond their fears, towards freedom. Behind them, echoes resonated. "You can never leave," and they all knew even when they escaped the physical realm of darkness, its curse would haunt them, intertwining their fates forever. They rushed ahead, but not without pondering how the shadows may persist, forever chasing in the edges of their thoughts. That chilling resonance silhouetted the tension in their hearts, a reminder of the power they had barely contained. Together, they could face what might come. Together they ventured forth into the dawn. As they finally broke free into the fresh air, the morning sun bathed them in warmth, illumination chasing away lingering doubts. Whatever darkness waited at the edges now would face their united strength, an unbreakable bond shielding them against the horrors to come. With heavy breaths yet a flicker of hope, they turned their backs to the woods, knowing full well that shadows would whisper again, but this time, they would be prepared. Don't look back. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and share your theories about what happened in the comments. Flood the comments section with your reactions. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference. Show us you're a true fan.